can a cultivator have such a huge momentum when he is promoting to the void return stage? The answer is obviously no. Xian, as the peak powerhouse of the third order void return stage, of course has a say in this matter. She has seen many people take this step and become a cultivator of void return stage. When Jieqi went through this process, she was protecting the law by herself, but no one could compare with this scene. This can be called a vision of heaven and earth. Xian looked shocked and couldn't help but remember the record she had seen in an ancient book a long time ago. That is, if a cultivator is strong enough, then he can cause some world changes when he is promoted to the great realm. Of course, such cultivators have always been rare in the history, and there will not necessarily be one for thousands of years. Does the sect master have such potential? In all fairness, Xian and Xianxia don't have much friendship, nor are they familiar with each other. She will stay in the High Heaven sect and take up the position of a great elder is also entirely because of Yang Yan. Apart from Yang Yan, she does not take the others in her eyes. With her eyesight, it can naturally be seen that Xianxia is much more powerful than the average Saint King realm. He is regarded as an elite among the elites. This is the case, it still has no effect on her. But at this moment, she couldn't help but take a look at Xianxia. If her conjecture is true, then no one can predict the future of this sect master. At this point, Xian's beautiful eyes glowed with a strange light, and she was a little expectant. In the sky, the huge spiral spiritual energy funnel contained energy fluctuations that could destroy the sky and the earth, and with the continuous influx of the world's 5 elements spiritual energy. The spiritual energy funnel began to become colorful and hung upside down in the sky above the Heaven One Palace, constantly rotating, which looks terrifying. Even if they were standing 3 miles away, everyone could feel the sense of oppression that resembled a landslide falling from the sky. Not to mention Xianxia, who was directly below the funnel. No one knows how much pressure he will be under. Outside the Heaven One Palace, the light flashed wildly, which was the reaction of the many restrictions of the Heaven One Palace after under pressure. Great Elder, what's the situation with the sect master? Xianxia and the others were anxious but didn't dare to release their spiritual mind to pry into it, so they had to ask Xian for advice. It seems to be going well. It has already touched the laws of heaven and earth. Xian replied lightly. Xianxia and others heard this. His face was overjoyed. Touched the law of heaven and earth meant that Xianxia was in sight of a breakthrough. But whether he can succeed or not depends on whether he can withstand the baptism of the energy of the heaven and earth. The faces of everyone changed slightly, and they all fell silent with a worried expression on their faces. The baptism of the energy of heaven and earth. It is a process that a cultivator must go through when he is promoted to the great realm. In this process, the cultivator will have to endure unimaginable hardships and pains. It is also the best standard for testing and measuring the overall quality of a cultivator. Once successful, it will increase one's own strength, allowing one's own strength to grow a large realm, thereby breaking through the bottleneck shackles and reach the next level. If it fails, the body will suffer heavy injuries as a result from the baptism. The most serious cases, the body will explode and die. After all, it was the baptism of the energy of heaven and earth. If it fails, the result will not be much better. Every year, countless cultivators fall at this gate of promotion. So for warriors, breaking through the realm is an opportunity and a challenge. The survival rule, that is, survival of the fittest, is fully reflected at this moment. How can an ordinary cultivator create such an amazing vision of heaven and earth when he is promoted to the great realm? Xianxia did it, which is certainly a shock and joy. But now that it have reached this point, it can only succeed without fail. Judging by the degree of energy accumulation in the world at this moment, if Xianxia fails, there will only be one end: the soul is flying away. After all, the power contained in the colorful spiritual energy funnel is too huge. It is simply not something a Saint King realm cultivator can bear. And just when everyone was worried, the huge spiritual energy funnel in the sky suddenly changed, as if there was something in the Heaven One Palace that attracted it. The spiritual energy funnel turned rapidly, and while spinning, the huge ocean-like spiritual energies of heaven and earth followed the direction that the funnel pointed, crashing down. There is no pause, as if the momentum has been accumulated for a long time, just for this one-time outbreak. The layers of the Heaven One Palace has restrictions are like paper, and they are completely vulnerable to the huge spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and they are instantly blasted. The colorful aura that makes Xianxia's face change color is crashing straight into the Heaven One Palace, then it disappeared quickly. The huge spiritual energy funnel is shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye, and in just a few breaths, the volume is reduced by a lot. Sect Master Xianxia and others exclaimed in shock, his expression changing wildly. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth is pouring down so much, it makes them unable to believe their eyes. They have all been promoted to the void return stage, and they have all gone through this stage. But the baptism of spiritual energy they experienced at that time was a burst of energy that split like lightning and poured into their bodies, and there was a certain time interval. Although it was strong, it gave them a chance to breathe and adjust. The scene before him was obviously not the case. As a result, Xianxia didn't have the slightest chance to catch a breath. No matter how powerful Xianxia is, how can he survive such a great power of heaven and earth? Xianxia's face turned white in an instant, and he instinctively thought that Xianxia was dead this time. Xian couldn't avoid feeling the same. She sighed with a hint of disappointment on her face. She thought she had encountered the kind of super genius who born once for thousands of years, but she didn't expect the other party to be just a fleeting moment. But soon, she frowned, her beautiful eyes gleaming, her expression became surprised. Because the huge spiritual energy funnel didn't dissipate but was still pouring down this sensational spiritual energy of heaven and earth continuously. The rumbling sound came from the inside, and it deafening. He is not dead. Xianxia raised her brows, surprised. If Xianxia is dead, this heaven and earth vision created by his promotion will of course dissipate, but since this spiritual energy funnel still exists, it means that the other party is not dead, but is still suffering and enduring the baptism of heaven and earth spiritual energy. This is also a key step to break through the realm. Listening to it closely, Xian clearly heard the dull and unbearable roar of a person in the rumbling sound. He really didn't die. Xian's beautiful eyes lit up and turned to look towards Yang. She suddenly found that she was more calm than herself. It seemed that she had expected it, but after careful observation, she could still find that Yang fists were quietly clenched. The eyes were filled with worry and anxiety. A group of High Heaven Sect people are in fear here, and all the powerful people in the Shadow Moon Palace, Clean Sky Sect, Colored Glass Sect and Floating Mist Palace are all shocked. Elder, can Brother Yang be able to bear such a baptism of world spiritual energy? Wei Gucheng asked urgently. The old man doesn't dare to make a judgment, but the matter is here. If he can't bear it, he will die. Qian Tong frowned and sighed. He didn't expect Xianxia's promotion to the void return stage will have such a strange scene, and can't help but worry about him. It doesn't necessarily mean that he can't bear it. Sect Master Gu Zhen thoughtfully, if his physical body is strong enough, he can accept these world's spiritual energy in a short time, but it's difficult. Although the Sect Master and the Great Elder of the Floating Mist Palace didn't say anything, when they looked over there, both their expressions flickered and were surprised. After Gongxing and Gong Aofu of Colored Glass Sect looked at each other, shocking colors appeared in the eyes of both father and daughter. They only thought that High Heaven Sect was able to achieve a great reputation, completely relying on the special terrain it occupies, and Xian who stay here. But now it seems that the Sect Master of the High Heaven Sect is not an ordinary person, and it is necessary to re-examine him again. If he falls this way, then everyone will be happy. There are already 2 giants on the Shadowed Star, the Battle Sky Union and Thunder Typhoon Sect, which is already enough. Gongxing doesn't want to have one more force like this. If he can really succeed, he needs to befriend him. Everyone had different thoughts, but no matter what they thought, at the moment everyone's attention was concentrated on the huge colorful spiritual energy funnel. After such a short time, the colorful funnel seemed to have become a lot smaller. Compared with just now, it's only half the size, and it's still shrinking rapidly. After another moment, under the eyes of everyone, the huge colorful funnel disappeared, and the world's spiritual energy originally contained in the funnel had all poured into the Heaven One Palace at this moment. The original depressive atmosphere and the terrifying sense of oppression also disappeared at the same time, and the sky returned to its clear true color. The sun poured down, clear blue sky, and there was no cloud. Only a few remaining colorful spiritual energy, like fish slipping through the net, are still floating above the Heaven One Palace. The entire High Heaven sect appeared quiet and silent. Everyone's eyes were focused on the position of the Heaven One Palace, and they wanted to know how things turned out over there. But there was no movement there. There was a dead silence, as if Xianxia had really fallen. Wu Yi and Xian Yu's face turned pale. Failed? Wu Yi and the others couldn't keep thinking about it, but there was no way to explain this scene except for the failure. No cultivator can withstand such a huge baptism of heaven and earth energy infusion in such a short period of time, even for third-order void return stage, let alone Xianxia, who was originally just at the peak of third-order Saint King stage. Although the two of them did not reach this state, they still had a good eyesight and vision. Xianxia and others are also feeling regretful. What are you all crying for? Yixian frowned slightly. Do you think he is dead? Changqi's expression was shocked when he heard the words. He looked at her in amazement, and said hesitantly, Great Elder, you mean? Yixian raised the corner of her mouth, and a smile bloomed on her always cold face. She had some fascinating amorous feelings. After adjusting her hair, she calmly said, Although I don't know how he did it. But yes. People are not dead. Not only is he not dead, but he is still alive and moist. To be continued.